Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. We've seen a pretty big change up in the SMG category lately just because of some of the weapon tuning that Raven's done, buffing certain weapons, nerfing others, obviously adding in some new ones with the H4 Blixen recently, and we now have a very close competition when it comes to the fastest killing sub in the game. So today we are breaking down what realistically is the best TTK SMG right now. As we go through it all, if you enjoy the video at any point, let me know by dropping a like on it. And if you're new to the channel or if you have not already subscribed, every single day I got you covered with all things going on in COD. So feel free to hit that sub button and turn on those post notifications. All right, I know what you're wondering. Zach, did you just change shirts spontaneously? Yes, I did. I had recorded this entire little first bit here. Then they actually ended up dropping some patch notes that completely changed part of the discussion here. They adjusted the H4 Blixen, which it's still going to be, you know, a main feature in this video, but I wanted to make sure all the stats were exactly correct for the breakdown of this. Of course, we're going to break down some loadouts in a bit as well. And I'll change shirts again for that because that'll be the initial recording. But just a heads up, I want to inform you guys, no, in fact, you're not crazy. And yes, I am actually really great at putting on different clothes. So when it comes to a different breakdown here of weapons, of course, we're looking at true game data as always. Big shout out to Tony for getting us this data and getting it so easily available for everyone to look at and break down. Looking at 300 HP, of course, because that's the standard across all maps, and combination shots for that most accurate TTK. Now, when it comes to which weapons I wanted to look at today, spoiler alert, Vanguard subs run the SMG meta. So we got the Blixen, which of course is a big talking point lately. The Owen gun, we know this has been a top TTK SMG for quite some time. Even after its last nerf, it's still very good. Type 100. We all know this thing is basically the best TTK in the game up close. MP40 is super popular SMG right now that's also very consistent up close. And the Armaguerra, which really has been boosted in popularity recently. So if we go ahead and we look at this graph, a few things stand out, right? Basically, every single gun here has a talking point that I find to be pretty interesting. Let's start first with the Blixen, the orange line here. So before this damage drop-off didn't exist, the nerf to the RMK barrel recently actually added that damage drop-off, but clearly it's not that drastic. This still has the second best TTK over range. Realistically, you're not using any of these subs in many gunfights outside of like this 30-meter mark here. So just keep that in mind. Up close here is primarily what we're looking at, but Blixen, really good for sniper support and really good for close range. It's got the third best, basically tied for the second best TTK up close with the Armaguerra. Now, it's also very easy to use. They fixed the bug with it, low recoil, good mobility, so the Blixen all around is a standout option for me. I think it's very obvious a lot of players would say the other standout is the Type 100 because we all know these other subs kill fast up close. The Type 100 is in fact just that much better, and it's like that overall ranges. The problem with the Type 100 is its damage per mag is not all that great compared to these other options because for the optimal TTK build, you have to be using a 36 round mag, which in duos, trios, and quads is not as practical. Also, the Type 100 has some recoil problems where it's a lot harder to control than a lot of these other builds that we have here. So that's another thing you gotta keep in mind when you're actually building these guns out and figuring out which one you want to use. But clear standouts, Blixen and Type 100 for the true fastest time to kills over the course of any SMG realistic range, right? But that's not to say these other options are bad. In fact, while I think the Blixen and the Type 100 are going to be top choices for those higher scale players, I think things like the Armaguerra and the MP40 and the Owen gun are still going to remain very popular, even if they're not killing quite as fast. And that said, they're pretty small differences. Armaguerra actually basically even with the Blixen through 11 meters. Then over range, it ends up being the third best. Very good for sniper support as well. It drops off a little bit in that 15 to 20 meter range, but that's still very competitive and a very small difference when it comes down to it. Unless of course, maybe you're going between Armaguerra and Type 100, in which case there's obviously a bit of a larger difference, but it's also very easy to use. So while it may have a slower TTK in the 16 to, you know, 25 meter mark or so, because you're going to maybe land more shots with this versus a Blixen or a Type 100 because the control, these TTKs, the gap there, not nearly as severe. The same thing applies to the MP40. Pretty solid TTK. Like, we know for a fact this applies to the Owen gun too, how fast these guns kill up close. The fact that they're last and second to last here is just sort of a testament to how fast the TTK is on these other weapons. But we know the MP40 is good up close. It does drop off severely though after 11 meters. Clearly from 11 to 25 meters, there are better choices. But again, because the recoil is just so easy, you're going to end up landing more shots with an MP40 versus some of these other options, and that gap is not nearly as big once again. Now, the Owen gun is kind of an interesting one because this is the max TTK build with no barrel and the 60-round drums, and it actually has the worst close-range TTK here and the worst TTK over range by a large margin. The Owen gun is not worth using past 20 meters, but within those 20 meters, it's still not all that difficult to use, and that TTK difference between this and the MP40 or the Armaguerra or even the Blixen, not actually all that much. We're looking at maybe 0.2 of a second in certain cases. So while there is clear best TTK options here with the Blixen, with the Type 100, which we'll break down the setups for in just a moment, all of these weapons right now are up there when it comes to the best SMG. It really depends more on what are you going to land the most shots with consistently. If you have 90% accuracy with the MP40, but 45% accuracy with the Type 100, clearly you want to be using the MP40. So important things to note there, but just for pure and raw TTK, there are some standouts that, like I said earlier, I think a lot of the top players are going to sort of flock to. So what exactly would those setups look like? Well, this is my initial Blixen setup here. Obviously, we got recoil booster. We have the RMK barrel, which has very rough recoil, but if you were to look at something like the F3, this has pretty significant drop-offs for that TTK, so it's not going to be nearly as competitive. If you're looking just for an incredibly fast TTK SMG, you pretty much have to be running this RMK barrel on here. Slate for the better red dot, remove stock, or if you want slightly better control, you could also switch to the MB. It won't be as harsh here with those recoil punishments, so that's always a great choice. Hand stop, obviously, for the better control, as we saw the 54 round mags. Lengthened, you could also use some sonic if you wanted to, or even frangible. That's all personal preference. Polymer for the better control, perfectionist for the better control, and quick for better movement. So we do have a lot of control factors on here that will help with that recoil quite a bit. So that is something to note. It'll be easier once you have everything maxed out here. Then as far as the Type 100 goes, pretty basic one here, as we saw on the graph: recoil booster, rapid barrel, and the 30 Russian short 36. Outside of that, it's basically the same stuff here with a few exceptions to help combat some of that horizontal control. Slate yet again, the T100 stock, better horizontal control, also helps out with the ADS, which is nice and ideal. Hand stop, lengthened, or any of the other ammo options you want. Hatched grip, which again, better horizontal control. And also, for what it's worth, you could run the same thing over on the Blixen if you wanted to help out with horizontal too. Gung ho, then quick for the perks here. The only difference, as I mentioned, is if you wanted to use the 48 round drums here, you're going to have a better damage per mag, but your TTK is going to be a little bit slower. The fastest TTK is with the 30 Russian short, but obviously 48 versus 36 is a pretty big difference in trios and quads. 36 is going to be very tricky for a lot of players to sort of master and figure out how to use correctly in squad engagements. So this is definitely the higher skill gap of the two to me. The Blixen, after you master that control, that's really all you need to do, and you've got a very solid weapon. And then clearly, if you're not super comfortable with the Blixen and you're very confident with the Owen or the Armaguerra or the MP40, you have very consistent options elsewhere too. So the SMG meta, great TTKs all around and plenty of options, which of course we love to see. That said, that's going to wrap things up for this one. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, let me know by dropping a like on it. And if you're new here, or if you have not already subscribed, every day I got you covered with all things going on in COD. So feel free to hit that sub button and turn on those post notifications. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, take it easy. Have an awesome rest of your day. And I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.